Belakangan saya sedang mengisi konten di TikTok. Jadi saya memiliki program bercerita tentang hal-hal gaib yang ada di daerah-daerah.
The Sacred Riana is one of the most unusual and unforgettable performers in the history of talent shows and stage magic. When most people think of magicians, they imagine someone smiling, wearing a suit, making cards disappear or pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But Riana broke every rule. She appeared on stage in an old-fashioned dress, with her head tilted, her long black hair covering part of her face, and her body twitching in an unsettling way. In her arms, she always carried a doll that looked almost as creepy as her. Unlike other performers, she almost never smiled, rarely spoke, and when she did speak, her voice was soft, broken, and strange. This combination made her seem less like a magician and more like a ghost who had walked straight out of a horror movie. The world came to know her through her shocking audition on America's Got Talent in 2018, which quickly went viral online and gained tens of millions of views. But behind that haunting performance is a much deeper story, full of personal struggles, cultural influences, pain, and transformation. Riana's real name is Marie Antoinette Riana Graharani, and she was born on July 13, 1992, in Jakarta, Indonesia. Growing up in Indonesia meant she was surrounded by folklore, ghost stories, and cultural tales about spirits and the supernatural. In Indonesian culture, stories of haunted places, mysterious figures, and unseen spirits are common, and children often hear them from a young age. For Marie, these stories were not just entertainment, they became a part of her imagination and personality. Her father was also a magician, specializing in illusions and psychological tricks. He often performed for friends and small crowds, and Marie grew up watching him create wonder by mixing reality with imagination. From a young age, she saw how a performance could make people question what was real and what was not. This mixture of her father's influence and her cultural background planted the seeds for the character she would later create. As a child, Marie was shy and introverted. She preferred silence and often found comfort in being alone rather than in noisy groups. While other kids were loud and playful, she was quiet and observant. She found magic in small things and believed in hidden worlds beyond what people could see. Her family noticed her unusual behavior, but they also encouraged her to express herself through art and performance. It was during her teenage years that she began experimenting with creating characters. Instead of trying to be funny or flashy, she leaned into her natural quietness and mysterious aura. She also became fascinated with Japanese horror films, especially characters like Sadako from The Ring and Kayako from The Grudge. These ghostly figures moved strangely, looked terrifying, and created fear without needing to say much. Marie realized she could combine this horror style with stage magic to create something entirely new. When she started performing, however, not everyone welcomed her. Her early TV appearances in Indonesia were often criticized. Producers told her she was too scary, that her act would not appeal to family audiences, and that she needed to change. They suggested she speak more, smile more, or tone down the horror elements. But Marie refused. She believed her character was strong only if she stayed committed to the unsettling silence and ghostly behavior. She did not want to be like other magicians. Instead, she wanted to stand out as someone unforgettable, even if it meant frightening people. For a while, this decision cost her opportunities, but she held firm. Her persistence eventually paid off when she appeared on The Next Mentalist in Indonesia in 2013, where she impressed audiences by being completely different from any other magician they had ever seen. This was the first big step in turning Marie into the Sacred Riana. The name, the Sacred Riana, itself added mystery. It connected her stage persona with something spiritual and untouchable, as if she was not just performing but channeling forces beyond herself. The doll she always carried, which she called Riani, became another important part of her character. For many, the doll symbolized childhood innocence turned dark. It looked like a toy that should have been comforting, but instead it was disturbing. Riana herself explained that the doll gave her a sense of safety and acted as a companion. In many ways, it was both a prop and a shield, something that protected her from the audience's eyes and gave her the courage to face them without breaking character. Her big breakthrough came in 2017, when she competed in Asia's Got Talent. At first, many judges and audience members were unsure what to make of her. But as her performances continued, she began to shock and captivate millions. Her illusions were carefully designed to feel like real hauntings. She made objects move, appeared to control people's minds, and created the sense that spirits were present on stage. Unlike other magicians, who revealed tricks with flair and confidence, Riana's style made it seem like she wasn't in control at all, that the spirits themselves were performing through her. By the finale, she had turned from a strange contestant into the show's winner, making history as the first horror magician to win a major international talent show. This victory spread her name across Asia and soon, across the world. Winning Asia's Got Talent opened the door to bigger stages, including America's Got Talent in 2018. Her audition quickly became one of the most watched in the show's history. In the audition, she performed a chilling act where she made photographs appear and vanish in a horrifying way. The judges looked deeply disturbed, and the audience screamed as if they were watching something supernatural unfold in real time. What made her audition unforgettable was not just the tricks but the atmosphere she created. The stage lights flickered, her movements were jerky and unsettling, and her doll seemed to almost have a life of its own. Simon Cowell, known for his tough criticism, admitted she was unlike anything he had ever seen before. This single performance spread across social media, reaching tens of millions of views within days. But her journey on America's Got Talent was also full of mystery and controversy. During the quarterfinals, something unusual happened. The television broadcast suddenly went black during her act. Viewers at home were confused when the screen cut to commercials mid-performance. When the show returned, Riana was gone. Many fans speculated about what had happened. Some thought it was a technical error, others believed it was intentional to make her act more dramatic, and still others whispered about curses and supernatural interference. The producers later explained that the blackout was planned, but the decision angered some fans who felt cheated out of seeing the full performance. Nevertheless, the moment added to Riana's legend, making her seem even more mysterious and untouchable. Behind the scenes, there were more stories that fueled her reputation. Crew members reported feeling uneasy whenever she rehearsed. Some claimed the lights flickered, or that they felt sudden chills in the room. A few even refused to be near her while she practiced. Judges also admitted they felt haunted after her performances, as if her presence lingered long after she left the stage. Whether these stories were real or simply the result of her powerful character work, they made her myth grow even bigger. Unfortunately, despite her huge popularity, she was eliminated in the quarterfinals. This was disappointing to her fans, many of whom believed she deserved to go further. For Riana herself, the elimination was heartbreaking. She felt that the world had not fully accepted her style of performance, that her horror magic was too unusual for mainstream American audiences. Even so, the exposure from America's Got Talent pushed her career to new heights. She began touring internationally, performing in countries where audiences were eager to see her live. She also entered the world of movies, starring in The Sacred Riana, beginning in 2019, a horror film that explored her character's backstory. The film was a hit in Southeast Asia, and it solidified her reputation not just as a magician but also as a horror icon. In 2022, she appeared in the sequel The Sacred Riana 2, Bloody Mary, which once again blurred the line between performance and reality. On set, she remained in character most of the time, making it difficult for even the cast and crew to separate the actress from the persona. This level of commitment impressed many, but it also raised concerns about her mental health. By now, Riana was living almost entirely as her character. Friends said it was rare to see her as Marie anymore. She spoke less and less outside of performances, and when she did, she sometimes referred to herself in the third person. Doctors later described this as dissociative identity stress, a condition where someone becomes so attached to a role or identity that their true self begins to fade. For Riana, the line between Marie and the Sacred Riana was almost gone. This was both her strength and her weakness. While it made her performances incredibly convincing, it also made her personal life very difficult. After her rapid rise to international fame, the Sacred Riana seemed unstoppable. She had gone from being rejected in her home country to winning Asia's Got Talent, shocking audiences on America's Got Talent, and even becoming a movie star. But behind the chilling performances and sold-out shows, her personal life was becoming more difficult. Living as the Sacred Riana was not just a stage choice anymore, it was becoming her entire identity. Offstage, she continued to dress like her character, carried her doll almost everywhere, and rarely allowed anyone to see her smile or hear her real voice. For many fans, this commitment was admirable, but for the people closest to her, it was worrying. Friends who had once known Marie said that she was slipping further and further into the character, as if Marie herself was slowly disappearing. The problem was not just about staying in character, it was about survival. For years, Riana had trained herself never to break her persona. Even during interviews, she kept her eerie silence or answered in her haunting whisper. This discipline made her famous, but it also trapped her. In private moments, she struggled to feel comfortable being herself. Sometimes she spoke about herself in the third person, saying things like, "Riana is tired," instead of, "I am tired." Psychologists who studied her performances suggested she might be experiencing dissociative identity stress, a mental state where a person becomes so deeply connected to a role that they can no longer fully separate from it. While other performers could remove their costumes and relax, Riana could not. The mask had become her face, and the character had become her life. Her family tried to help her, but even they found it difficult to reach the real Marie. Her mother was proud of her success but worried about her daughter's health. Her father, who had introduced her to magic in the first place, encouraged her to take breaks, but Riana refused. She felt that if she let go of her character, she would lose the power that made her unique. In her mind, people wanted the Sacred Riana, not Marie. This way of thinking isolated her even more. She stopped appearing in public as herself and only gave the world the eerie figure she had created. The only consistent comfort she had was her doll, Riani, which she often described as her protector. Many people thought it was just a creepy stage prop, but for her, it was something far more personal. The doll was a shield against loneliness and a symbol of safety in a world that expected her to always be scary and mysterious. But even the strongest mask cannot protect someone forever. In 2019, after the release of her first movie, Riana began to feel overwhelmed. She had been working non-stop for years: competitions, tours, interviews, rehearsals, filming, and promotional events. She barely had time to rest, and when she did, she found it difficult to step out of character. Many performers talk about the pressure of fame, but for Riana, the pressure was doubled. She wasn't just performing tricks, she was carrying the weight of a terrifying persona every single day. The more successful she became, the more people expected her to stay exactly the same. This left her feeling trapped, as if she had no way to escape the character she had created. In interviews, she often gave short, strange answers, which made people believe she was simply playing the role. But behind those moments was a woman struggling with her own identity. Some people began to joke about her silence, calling her the ghost girl or saying she was possessed. While fans enjoyed the mystery, those close to her saw the pain. She was caught in a cycle. The more she performed as the Sacred Riana, the more famous she became, but the more famous she became, the less she could live as Marie. Her success was built on a character that was slowly consuming her. Then came the tragedy that pushed her to the edge. In August 2023, her grandfather passed away unexpectedly. This was not just a personal loss, it was a devastating blow to the last connection she had to her true self. Her grandfather was one of the only people who still called her by her real name, Marie. While the world saw her as the Sacred Riana, he reminded her that she was still a granddaughter, still a person beyond the stage. His death left her feeling lost, as if the last thread connecting her to her original identity had been cut. In interviews later, she admitted that she cried for days and felt an emptiness she couldn't escape. For months after his death, she canceled shows, turned down offers, and disappeared from public life. Fans speculated about what had happened to her, with some even spreading rumors that she had fallen into madness or had been cursed by the very spirits she pretended to control. The truth was simpler but also more heartbreaking: she was grieving and breaking down. Without her grandfather's support, she no longer had the strength to keep going. Even her doll, which had once been her comfort, felt like a heavy burden. She stopped carrying it with her, and in photos during that period, she appeared empty and distant. For the first time, she began to question whether her character had taken too much from her life. She realized that she had built a wall so high that even she couldn't climb over it anymore. By October 2023, her condition had worsened to the point where she could no longer perform at all. She admitted herself into a private wellness clinic, where she began therapy and counseling. Doctors encouraged her to slowly reconnect with herself, not just as the Sacred Riana but as Marie. They asked her to remove the costume, put away the doll, and spend time rediscovering her own voice. At first, this was terrifying for her. She felt naked without the mask of her character, and she didn't know how to act as Marie anymore. But with time and support, she began to heal. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to rest. She spent time reflecting on why she had created the Sacred Riana in the first place. She realized that the character had been born from fear and silence, her fear of being ordinary, her silence as a shy child, and her fascination with horror stories. By turning those parts of herself into a powerful stage persona, she had built an identity that protected her from the world. But what she had not realized was that the same identity was also trapping her. Therapy helped her understand that she did not need to destroy the Sacred Riana but that she needed to find balance between the character and herself. The road to recovery was not easy, but it gave her new strength. Slowly, she began rehearsing again, but this time, she allowed herself to separate performance from personal life. She practiced being Marie in private and being the Sacred Riana only on stage. She also began to write down her thoughts, journaling about her childhood, her fears, and her dreams. This process allowed her to rediscover parts of herself she had long forgotten. Friends who visited her during this time said she seemed lighter, more relaxed, and more open. For the first time in years, they heard her laugh. By early 2024, she was ready to return. But she wanted her comeback to be different. She no longer wanted to simply shock people with horror tricks, she wanted to tell a story. She created a new show called Alone, The Sacred Riana, which premiered in Australia. Tickets sold out quickly, showing that her fans had not forgotten her. But when audiences came to see the show, they found something new. Instead of only performing horror illusions, she used her acts to explore deeper themes of grief, loss, and identity. She asked audience members to give her personal items, like a photograph or a piece of jewelry, and she wove these objects into her illusions, creating a performance that felt intimate and emotional. Each act carried the message that sometimes the ghosts we fear are not supernatural, they are our memories, our grief, and even our own selves. This new version of the Sacred Riana was more powerful than ever, not because she was scarier but because she was more human. Audiences were still terrified by her twitching movements, flickering lights, and ghostly illusions, but they were also moved by the story she told. For many, it felt like watching a person confront her own shadow on stage. Her comeback proved that she was not just a performer who scared people, she was an artist who used horror to reveal the deepest parts of the human heart. The Sacred Riana's return in 2024 through her show Alone marked more than just a comeback, it was a transformation. She had spent years trapped in her own creation, almost losing herself to the eerie persona that made her famous. But now, she had found a way to balance her identity as Marie with her character as the Sacred Riana. This balance gave her performances a new depth, one that audiences across the world began to appreciate. Instead of only delivering shocks and screams, her shows became journeys into human emotions. Fear was still at the center of her art, but it was no longer the only element. She now explored themes of loneliness, identity, and the invisible struggles people carry within themselves. This shift showed maturity not only as a performer but also as a person who had gone through deep pain and found healing. Audiences noticed this change immediately. In earlier years, Riana's acts had been terrifying but distant, people admired her skill and commitment, but they didn't feel close to her. With her new performances, however, there was a sense of vulnerability. Even though she still twitched, stared, and frightened the crowd, she also allowed them to see that her illusions were metaphors for real struggles. When she asked someone in the audience to give her a personal item and then used it in an illusion that seemed to summon lost memories, it was not just a trick, it was a message about how grief and the past can haunt us like ghosts. For many people, this made her performances more meaningful than ever before. They were no longer just watching a magician, they were witnessing an artist sharing her soul through the language of horror. Her new direction also gave her career a second wind. Invitations poured in for international tours, interviews, and collaborations. But unlike before, she was careful about how much she accepted. Having experienced the dangers of overwork and identity loss, she now set boundaries. She chose only the projects that aligned with her new vision, and she gave herself time to rest and recover between shows. This change in lifestyle allowed her to enjoy her work more, and it also made her performances stronger because she was no longer burned out. Fans noticed that she seemed calmer and healthier, even when she was fully in character on stage. This balance was something she had never been able to achieve before, and it showed how much she had grown. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Sacred Riana's story is the way she blurred the line between horror and magic. Most magicians rely on charm, humor, or flashiness to connect with audiences. Riana did the opposite. She stripped away the comfort and created an atmosphere of discomfort. She made people feel uneasy, and in that uneasiness, they paid closer attention. In a world where magic tricks are often predictable, her style was refreshing because it was unsettling. Viewers did not know whether they were watching a performance or an actual haunting. This uncertainty is what gave her such a powerful impact. By combining magic with horror, she created a unique space in entertainment that very few others have ever explored. Her legacy also goes beyond just entertainment. The Sacred Riana represents something deeper about identity and art. Her struggles show the risks of dedicating yourself completely to a character or role. Many performers create personas to connect with audiences, but few go as far as Riana did. She lived her character so fully that she almost lost her own identity. This raises questions about how much of ourselves we give away when we create art. Do we control the character, or does the character begin to control us? For Riana, the answer was both. For years, the character controlled her, but through her breakdown and recovery, she learned how to take back control. This lesson is not only important for artists but also for anyone who feels trapped by expectations, whether from society, work, or personal roles they play in life. Another part of her legacy is how she challenged the global perception of Asian performers. Coming from Indonesia, she broke into an industry that is often dominated by Western artists. By combining local cultural influences, Japanese horror inspiration, and her unique creativity, she showed the world that talent knows no borders. Her success opened doors for other performers from Asia, proving that international audiences are ready for different kinds of art. She also gave pride to her home country, becoming a cultural icon not just in magic but in the wider entertainment industry. For many young magicians and artists in Southeast Asia, she is an example of how being different can be a strength, even when others first reject you. Even today, the Sacred Riana remains one of the most mysterious performers in the world. Unlike other celebrities who share their personal lives on social media, she still protects her privacy. She rarely posts as Marie, and when she does, it is usually connected to her work. This has kept the aura of mystery around her, making her seem larger than life. At the same time, those who follow her closely can see that she has grown stronger and healthier. She may still perform as the eerie ghostly figure, but behind the scenes, she is learning to enjoy life as herself again. The fact that she can now switch between the two identities, Marie and Riana, without losing herself is a sign of how far she has come. Looking at her journey, it is clear that the Sacred Riana's story is not just about magic tricks or horror acts. It is about the human struggle with identity, loss, and resilience. She started as a shy girl who loved ghost stories, became a global star by turning her silence and strangeness into art, nearly lost herself to the persona she created, but eventually found healing and balance. This arc makes her story more powerful than any illusion she has ever performed. It shows that even in the darkest times, people can rediscover themselves and come back stronger. Her performances today continue to leave audiences in awe, not just because they are frightening, but because they carry meaning. When she makes a chair move on its own, when she causes a photograph to appear in her hand, or when she stares into the eyes of an audience member as if reading their soul, it is not just a trick, it is a reminder of the ghosts we all carry within us. These ghosts may not be spirits from another world, but they are real, grief, memories, fears, and the parts of ourselves we hide. By turning these invisible struggles into visible illusions, the Sacred Riana gives her audiences both fear and reflection. She makes them scream, but she also makes them think. In the end, what makes the Sacred Riana unforgettable is not only her commitment to her character but also her courage to face the consequences of that commitment. She dared to be different in an industry that rewards familiarity, and she paid a heavy price by almost losing herself. But instead of letting that destroy her, she found a way to use her pain to create even stronger art. That is why her story resonates with so many people. It is not just the story of a magician, it is the story of a woman who faced her own shadow and learned to live with it. The Sacred Riana remains a haunting figure on stage, twitching, silent, and ghostly. But behind that mask is Marie, a woman who has learned to balance fear with hope, darkness with light, and art with life. Together, these two sides create something unique, a performance that is both terrifying and deeply human. And perhaps that is the true magic of the Sacred Riana, not just making people believe in ghosts, but making them see the invisible struggles inside themselves.